everybody. It is Carrie Grand here with the Church Lab, and this is our second installment of the Burst Your Bubble video series that the Church Lab is doing. Burst Your Bubble is something that has come up from how sheltered we very literally are during the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, it was already tough to seek out different perspectives, especially around faith, so that we can always be growing. Now that we're sheltering in place, how much harder is it to bump into people or to even seek them out to learn from different faith perspectives? So Burst Your Bubble is intended to be a briefish video series where we interview folks from our dialogue community that have different faith perspectives to offer around navigating these pandemic times. So last time we talked with one of our beloved dialoguers, Dash, who is pagan. That was really fun. And today we have a special treat. I'm very excited about introducing you to our guest today. What else do I need to tell you? The Church Lab is a community which seeks innovative paths to spiritual maturity. And we are interested in helping the church find her future, really. So a lot of the work we do is around helping Christians and religious leaders go deeper into spiritually growing and how to help other people spiritually grow when America is really changing the way we participate in religion and the faith. But really at the end of the day, we're excited and eager to help people of any faith tradition or none at all to figure out how to spiritually grow. And our primary way of doing that is maintaining and deepening relationships with people who have really different faith perspectives. So if that sounds intriguing or interesting or helpful or hard but good, as it sounds to many people, we'd love for you to check us out at thechurchlab.org. And there you can sign up, subscribe to our MailChimp, RSVP to dialogues if you want to give it a try. We'd love to have you. And today's Burst Your Bubble, or really the whole series, is going to feature 10 questions, each of which could take us an hour to dig into and explore. But that is closer to what we do during dialogue. So if this becomes a teaser for you, we hope that we'll see you in dialogue. But for today, we're going to get a sampling of the wonderful Pam Jarvis's perspective. And I'm just going to jump right in, Pam, and say number one is introduce yourself. Go for it.
Hi, thank you. I'm Pam Jarvis. I am the pastoral assistant at TCL, but also I'm a dialogue participant. I've been for 2 years very happily participating in these conversations. I'm Episcopalian, so in what I am is I would call an overall progressive Christian. I'm sheltering at the home of my friend Camille, who also happens to be the sibling of the person I'm dating, and so he's there, and his kids are here, so we're a little pod. Yeah, so that's where I am and who I am.
That's perfect. I love that you pretty consistently call yourselves a pod. Like, the pod's doing well. I like that image. So number two is, what is a ritual in your worshiping community that is helping you or challenging you in a good way during the Corona season?
One of the things that being Episcopalian is that there's a consistent liturgy from week to week that's very familiar to me and comfortable and comforting to me. That I love being in community with my group of people. So it's been challenging to not be in church with people. And one thing that's been especially challenging, and I think this might come up later, is the Episcopalians, we celebrate the Lord's Supper, Eucharist, every single time we get together, unless there's not a priest there. So that's a really integral and central part of how I experience my faith practice, and I do miss that a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of missing. There's a lot of things I miss. And it's hard for me. I've been reading the morning prayer. There's a little section in our Book of Common Prayer that you can do by yourself at home that has psalms and prayers, and to think about that. So I do that.
Yeah.
So that's what I do at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. I'm telling you, I said this in the last video too. Easy 5 questions could come from just that response.
Right.
And I very much so resonate with what you're talking about. And I'll hold myself. But yeah, that's meaningful to hear you say. The third question is, what is a sacred text that is really speaking to you through the Corona season?
I'm not gonna lie. At first it was very, very difficult for me to imagine any kind of hope. I was very scared for my family and people who are close to me. I have a lot of people who are in high risk groups that are my loved ones, and so with all the uncertainty, it was very difficult. And also, people were dying, so that was kind of scary too. So one of the things is one of the books that in the sacred tradition of Christianity, which is the Bible, there's a book called Lamentations, and it's pretty much strictly, look, this is really terrible. We're hurting. Yeah, hello. This is not pleasant, and so that was something I turned to a lot, especially in the early days of having to think about what we're doing in this time and what I was doing. So it's been very nice to sort of recognize that crying out is enough. Like, there doesn't have to be a request for help. There doesn't have to be help. Just a recognition that the cry of pain can be enough. So.
I think that's beautifully stated, and not dissimilar from what Dash was sharing last week. One of the 2 texts that Dash shared about was Psalms, right? And presumably laments. That is a really common thread that I've been hearing amongst religious leaders as well, and their congregants in churches in particular, that the laments coming from Psalms, Lamentations, literally laments, right, are so meaningful as a point of resonance right now, to know so much in our culture is about answers, right? So much in our culture is about, okay, now how do we fix it?
Right.
And to see how fitting it is in our own sacred text, to see uncertainty, to see voices that you said. I thought that was so beautiful. You said crying out is enough. It can sit there. Yeah.
To witness the pain, alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4 is, what is a part of your faith tradition's history that feels helpful for you to reflect on or share during this season?
This was a really great question for me, because one of the things I value about my tradition is the fact that it is such a solid tradition. There are so many aspects of it that don't change. Like, look, really seriously, the worshiping books change very, very rarely. What we do. And so it's comforting to me to know that some things won't change. Like, there are some things that will stay the same all the time. I can't remember if there's another question that would ask this, but one of the things that I really value about my tradition, and anyone who's heard me talk in dialogue has heard me say this, which is that the liturgy ties me to everyone who's come before me and will come after me, and also to everyone worshiping in my tradition around the world on any given Sunday or morning. And so that's comforting to me too, to know that I'm still connected to all the people that I can't see. Sorry. I don't know what that was. All the people I can't see. That I couldn't see them before, I couldn't imagine, the people that I was worshiping with on Sunday morning who worshiped in the 1400s, or I guess not that far back, but anyway, and who will worship in my tradition 200 years from now, or who worship in Bangladesh, or Brazil. I already couldn't see them. I already had ability to imagine them as part of my community, and part of who I am anyway. So that's nice to know. Like, that has come in handy, because I do miss my people. So it's nice to imagine that all the other people who are already there are still there. So.
Yeah, that's been, I think, a poignant reference point for many folks. I've heard myself trying to encourage pastors who are concerned for sick congregants who are going into hospitals alone, and of course for those who are dying without loved ones nearby, that precisely the image that you're talking about feels, to let my cursor, feels particularly powerful to me, that a cloud of witnesses is with us, and that we commemorate that already in our worshiping communities, in many of our worshiping communities. And so to take that and lift that piece of it up as we go in to situations where physically we may be alone, but to know that doesn't push on the sense of connection or reality of connection that we have with our loved ones, right?
Right, and I think the other thing that's kind of unique about my being a Protestant in the Protestant tradition, part of our Eucharist, every week we say, we refer to the angels and archangels, and so I like that feeling too, of knowing that there's that cloud of witnesses you mentioned is enormous for me, and a very comforting connection point for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And not to play down the difficulty of those of us who are, whether we're isolated in a hospital or because we're healthcare workers and we're isolating ourselves from our family, or folks who are living alone. Those things are not made easy by, well, just think of the people that, but certainly there is, for me, my experience so far has been that there's so much power in reflecting on the reality of connection we have that isn't dependent upon the physical.
Right. I mean, I'm not going to go on and on about it, but that's sort of the basis of who I see Jesus to have been, is someone who showed up with us and is with us and knows us and knows our condition. That's how God just knows what it is we're going through and can be present with us all the time. It doesn't make it go away, the pain or the suffering, but at least in my experience, that's helpful to know, to feel.
Like you said before, the witness, even the witness in Lamentations, right? That there's something about the witness, or sometimes I'll use the word witness, right? Emmanuel, in our tradition, that God is with us. But that is part of how we understand the embodiment of love, right? That, yeah. Anyway, I just love what you're reflecting on. Okay, number 5 is, why or why not is your particular faith tradition of importance to you in this season?
Primarily for that reason that I just said, which is that I definitely feel like God is with me, and God is with my loved ones. I have friends who are Jewish and not, who sort of don't have that same thing I do about Jesus having joined us, as but God is definitely with my friend who's stuck at home alone. She literally can't have anybody come in the house. She's so fragile. So she's been by herself as a person, in terms of personhood, for this whole time before we were. And so she feels that she has that experience too, of feeling like God is with us. And that's why it's important for me. That's the main important thing about my tradition, is that I do feel like God is with me and for me and present with me, and on top of it with me, so I don't ever feel alone. So that I'm very lucky in that way. You know, I mean, I feel lonely sometimes and lonesome because I'm by myself, but person to person, but I don't ever feel abandoned. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Yeah. Number 6, to continue the trajectory of very serious questioning. What is your favorite meme or GIF or joke around Corona so far?
That was the funniest one. There are a lot. The one that really just sticks with me all the time is actually a visual one that has it's like a calendar of the months going down, and January is like really well ordered and all the blocks are the same size and the numbers, and then February starts, and then by April it's just this long globular like spread out, and the numbers are like, I don't know, it's like, is it Saturday? There's also one I love from I saw yesterday, which is a Jeopardy, a picture of a woman on Jeopardy. And the question is, you know, what day is it? And she's like, she's got her 4 answers. Or, That's this sense of I'm already, like, and you will totally have to agree with me. My sense of time in terms of days and hours was already so tenuous. And now it is just melted. I missed dialogue one Monday. I did not realize it was Monday. Like, so it's been a real struggle for me to organize our week somehow, my week, so that I have some place to put like my sense of time. Yeah, that's been the challenge.
Yeah.
So all the memes that have to do with calendars and losing track of the days are very relatable to me.
Yeah. Oh, and clearly you're not alone in that, right? Like
there wouldn't be so many memes if I were.
Exactly. Yeah. I love it. Number 7 is, what is a non-Corona movie, song, book, podcast, something that has helped you have fun during this time? You know, so many of us are trying to create sort of a Corona diet, if you will, where it only takes up the news itself in particular, you know, only takes up so much room in our day. And so I've started sharing more and more really cool recommendations for, like, this is what I do to switch my brain energy, you know.
Well, Ronan and Camille introduced me to 30 Rock, which I'd never seen. So it's a nice long 5-month stop. I already watched The Office, and there's Parks and Rec. I just couldn't quite get it, and but I like 30 Rock, so we're watching that. And also watching a lot of John Mulvaney stand up. And then at night I read poetry. There's a book, Garrison Keillor pulled a bunch of poems and called them good poems. And Ronan gave me a book of another book of poetry, and then I bought one right before this all happened. That was a big anthology. So I've been reading poems at night. And that's takes me into a different, it's a different meter, sort of makes my brain feel different. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great night routine. I like that one. Yeah. I'm very excited for you about 30 Rock.
So far, so good.
Yeah. Very, you'll have to let me know.
Okay.
What is the hardest thing today, because we know this changes, right? What is the hardest thing today for you about COVID-19?
The hardest thing is being apart from my daughter, who's 15 and 16 now. And that's the hardest bit, is that I've seen her because she's staying with her other parent. So I can take my lawn chair and she can sit on their deck, and I can sit in my lawn chair on the sidewalk, and we can visit. But it's not the same as living together, but our families are in these sort of isolated pods. Ronan's mom and the kid's dad and you know, my roommate in my other house that I have to come and go from, we were really self-contained. We were being very good, and my ex that Abby's with, her other parent, have grandparents in the house now, so they really have to be super careful.
Yeah.
So that's the hardest bit, is not being able to be sort of a regular parent, you know, being a phone parent to a teenager, and it's such an unnatural state of affairs for a teenager to be stuck with just their parent for weeks on end, one parent at the, you know, when she has to. So yeah, that's the hardest bit.
Yeah. 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 So many of the things that we just didn't even conceive of as challenges we would ever need to consider, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to the opposite end of that, what is so many folks are and not everybody can afford this, but all the same, so many folks have identified silver linings and said, you know what, I didn't expect that this beautiful thing, time, habit, experience, moment, you know, would come from this time. What does that mean for you?
Well, there are two things. For one thing, Ronan's kids weren't here until last Saturday. They were gone for 2 months. So it was just 3 adults in the house. Although my income is not fabulous, it's stable. And so we just had a lot of free time. I had a lot of free time on my hands because I don't have the job that I was going to work to every day. So two things. One is the house that I'm staying in luckily had a lot of projects that needed to be done inside the house and outside the house and in the property. So I've been doing that. It's so great. I feel stronger because I'm moving heavy things. I'm using power tools and having to use my creative problem solving skills to think about how to make things easier for the kids to be here and for the house to just function to live in. So that's been super fun. And I really enjoyed it. I made a drainage system out front of the house where I Ronan dug the trench, and the other day I made a bridge that goes over it so you can walk from the sidewalk to the front door. It's so great. And I was looking at it with Camille, and she was like, I love it so much. And I said, well, I have to admit that for many people, having a giant trench dug across their front yard would not be something they considered a home improvement. But she feels like it's totally magical. So it's great. So that's one thing. And I feel really strong and capable. So I love that. Number two, because I'm reading poetry at night, then I started writing it because I would wake up and write it. So now I've started writing some poetry. And the third one, just as an aside, I'm learning to cut my own hair. So that's a silver lining. I will never have to pay for another haircut.
Love it. Love it. You know what that reminds me of? Writing poetry in the morning, which I'm glad to hear you're doing. For those who don't know Pam is a wonderful and talented creative soul, so this is good that Pam is generating and creating. One of our other TCL community people was talking to me the other day about spiritual disciplines, and she is doing morning prayer and evening prayer free form, and in the morning it's talking. She talks to God, and in the evening she listens. And I really like the way that she described breaking that up. You know, this dedicated time. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you said, you know, you're reading poetry at night and you're writing it in the morning, I immediately thought about that, right? Like
that is so interesting.
Taking in a time for listening,
right,
and a time for offering. You know.
Yes, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So the last question is, what is a way that you are taking really good care of yourself during this time?
Well, for one thing, the number one thing is I'm a huge extrovert. So the main thing I did to take care of myself, which was utterly luck, and the kindness of my friends is that I am in a pod with people, because I would be going absolutely not doing well if I had been in my home by myself. And I really have a lot of sympathy and empathy for people who are like me and who are stuck alone. That would be really, really hard. I know, because of the days that I've been here by myself. So yeah, so I have a lot of empathy. So that was just sheer luck, but also a huge bit of what's kept me, like, stable and sane. The other thing is all the work, the physical work I'm doing around the house. That keeps my mind busy and my body, and it keeps me from sitting around on the couch eating Pringles, which is, my tendency, without something to do, and it keeps my mind engaged, and it's so emotionally satisfying, because every time my friend walks outside and sees something new, she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so fabulous! Thank you, thank you." So on every level, that's something really rewarding. Yeah, and the poetry, writing, reading and writing has been helpful. Those are things that I do for myself. And I have a therapist, so there's that, and I highly recommend that. So yeah, those are the things.
Where possible.
Where possible.
That's so great. And speaking of Pringles, or snack foods, I should say.
Yeah.
I still have your carton of goldfish in my pantry, whoever's watching.
I think you need to eat those, Carrie, because they're going to be still goldfish by the time I see you again. It's going to be a sad day.
I don't know. There's a lot of tea. There's a lot of goldfish that normally, for those watching, is used for dialogues. And there's a shelf in my pantry that's just dedicated to Church Lab snacks, and Pam is obsessed with goldfish.
I love the goldfish.
Time, and we know this is infamous love of goldfish that compels Pam. So I think of you every time. That big old carton of goldfish just like waving at me every time I open my pantry. Like, oh,
you sprinkle them on your soup next time, Scott. I think is the.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Well, that's all 10 of our questions. Is there anything else we didn't get to or cover that you want to share otherwise?
No, I think everybody can just remember that it's really okay to have a bad day and for things to not be going well, and it doesn't have to go well all the time, and it is really hard. It is really genuinely hard. It's not easy on any of us, and for people who are the healthcare workers, and people who work in grocery stores, and people who are separated from their children for any reason. There are a lot of reasons for people to be having a really hard time, and that's understandable, and it's normal. That's the main thing I would say, besides everything I already said.
Amen to that. Yeah, I'm so grateful that you shared your time with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's nice to kind of sort of feel like we're hanging out.
I know. And
talking about things we probably would be talking about whether or not it was a recording. So
it's sort of thing I think about all the time. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad that it moved from thoughts to sharing, because I think it'll lift people up to feel connected to how you're processing this. So thank you very much.
Sure.
And for whoever may be watching, check us out at thechurchlab.org. Check out our other Burst Your Bubble video by Dash, either on this YouTube channel or on the churchlab.org/blog. I think it's on our blog page. And hopefully we'll see you next time.
And if you want to be get our newsletter every week, let Carrie and me know.
Yes. You can email either one of us, Carrie, like the scary movie, at thechurchlab.org, or Pam's email is help@thechurchlab.org, because that is what she will give you. And we can get you on the MailChimp, or you can subscribe on the website.
Yep. Yay.
Thank you.
Bye.
We'll see you soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.